Sometime this winter, you're going to wake up before your alarm in total darkness, and your body is going to refuse to move. Your legs will feel heavier than they did in July. Your head will be full of fog. You'll want something fatty and sweet before you've even stood up. You'll want 10 hours of sleep and you'll want to see nobody, and you'll call it what everyone calls it: laziness, low discipline, winter blues. But that's not quite right, because something inside you is trying to shut down, and you have never once been allowed to finish it. Humans have been losing this argument with winter for at least 430,000 years. We know the exact number because of a pile of bones at the bottom of a pit in northern Spain. Bones that a very serious group of scientists think belong to something that was hibernating. Start with the problem, because the problem is worse than you think. Every large mammal in Ice Age Europe had an answer to winter. Bears denned. Ground squirrels dropped their body temperature to near freezing. Birds left the continent. Deer grew a second coat in September without deciding to. And then there's us. No fur, no den instinct, no migration route. A tropical animal standing on the wrong continent watching the light disappear, and winter is not a cold problem. Winter is when nothing grows. No fruit, no greens. The ground is frozen, so you can't dig. The water is frozen, so you can't fish. And the animals still out there have burned through their own fat, which creates something that sounds impossible until you hear the mechanism. You can eat until your stomach is completely full every day and starve to death anyway. Here's the arithmetic. Your liver can only convert so much protein before it can't keep up. The ceiling is somewhere around a third of your daily calories. Lean winter meat is close to 80% protein. So the food is in your hand, your stomach is full, and you are still losing. It's called protein poisoning. Arctic explorers had a blunter name for it: rabbit starvation. And we know precisely how it works because two men proved it inside a hospital. In 1928, an explorer named Vilhjalmur Stephenson and his colleague Karsten Andersen checked into Bellevue Hospital in New York. They ate nothing but meat for an entire year, watched by physicians the whole time. For most of that year, they were fine. The doctors kept testing them and kept finding nothing wrong. Then the researchers switched them to lean meat only. Both men were sick within 2 or 3 days. They put the fat back. Both men recovered. 1 year, 2 men, watched by doctors who fully expected them to fail. So the thing that saved a human being in February was never the meat, it was the fat on it, which means every winter came down to a calculation somebody had to make in autumn while they were still comfortable. How many people? How many months? How much fat? Get it wrong in October and you find out in March. Now with all of that in your head, go to Spain. There is a cave system in the Atapuerca Mountains. Deep inside it, at the bottom of a 13-meter vertical shaft, there's a chamber. The Spanish name is Cima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. At the bottom are the remains of at least 28 people, roughly 430,000 years old. It is the richest collection of Middle Pleistocene human fossils found anywhere in the world. One thing to be straight about: these were not your direct ancestors. DNA recovered from that pit puts them on the Neanderthal branch, which split off from our line long before this. But they were human. They were in the cold. And they had exactly the problem you would have had, and their bones are damaged, not randomly. In 2020, 2 researchers, Antonis Bartziocas and Juan Luis Arzuaga, published a paper on what that damage actually looks like. They found bone that had stopped growing, then started, then stopped again, layer after layer, year after year, like tree rings written into a human skeleton. They found the signature of a body that had been living off itself, bone broken down and reabsorbed, the way it happens in an animal that goes months without eating. And they knew what that pattern looked like because the same cave system is full of cave bears, animals that unquestionably hibernated, lying in the dark a few meters away, with damage in their bones that matched. Their conclusion was that these people hibernated, that every autumn as the light failed, they went underground, slowed their bodies down, and slept through the worst of it. Not sheltered, not weighted, shut down. It is one of the strangest claims in modern paleoanthropology, and it might be completely wrong, because the pushback was immediate and it was severe. And honestly, the counter-argument might be the better story. Start with sunlight. Spend months of every year underground in the dark, at that latitude, and you develop serious vitamin D deficiency. Chronic deficiency wrecks the way bone is built and rebuilt. It produces lesions. Those lesions look almost exactly like the ones in the pit. Then there's the physics, which is harder to argue with. Hibernation gets harder the bigger you are. A ground squirrel weighs a few hundred grams and can drop to near freezing. A bear is the extreme upper edge of what's possible, and a bear only drops a few degrees below normal. Now put a 60-kilogram primate on that scale. That's not near the edge. That's a long way past it. And then there's the organ that ends the argument. Your brain is 2% of your body weight. It takes about 20% of your calories. And unlike almost everything else in you, it cannot simply be switched off. Squirrel, a few hundred grams. Bear, barely a few degrees. You, a brain that never stops eating. The physics says no. So the simpler explanation is this. These were people who spent every winter underground in near total darkness, cold, and badly underfed. That alone will do this to a skeleton. No hibernation required. And sit with that, because it is not the gentler version. It means they weren't sleeping through winter. They were awake for all of it. Months in the dark, watching their own bodies come apart, then walking back out into the light in spring and starting again. So that settles it, right? Well, not quite. Because there's something strange about how long it took anyone to even ask the question. Those cave bears had been lying a few meters from those human bones for decades. Excavated, cataloged, sitting in the same collections with the same marks in them. Nobody put the two side by side because nobody could picture the thing they'd be comparing. You don't look for a hibernating human. The evidence was in the same room the whole time, and the missing piece was never data. It was imagination. And underneath the whole argument, there's something both sides quietly agree on. Your body still runs a winter program. Right now. For decades, it was assumed only babies had brown fat. Brown adipose tissue, a special kind of fat that exists purely to burn calories and make heat. Adults were thought to lose it. In 2009, several research teams found it in adults. Active, and it switches on in the cold. In most people, it's at its most active in winter and close to dormant in summer. You are carrying a heating system you didn't know about, and it turns itself on by the season. Your sleep changes too. Your body measures the length of the night by how long it produces melatonin, and in winter, that window gets longer. Not because you decided anything, because there's a system in you counting daylight the way an animal counts it. Your appetite shifts, your thyroid shifts, your mood shifts. It's partial, it's vestigial. It doesn't do very much, but it's in there, measuring the light and adjusting you. So in January, when you can't get out of bed, when you eat more than you meant to, when you don't want to answer anyone, and you lie there in the dark telling yourself you've become lazy and weak and that something is wrong with you, nothing is wrong with you. You are running the last surviving fragment of a program that kept people alive. Your body is trying to do something in winter. We just never let it finish. There's a word buried in this. Our word starve comes from the Old English stjorfen, and it didn't originally mean hunger at all. It just meant to die. Any death, any cause. It only narrowed to mean death by hunger later. And it narrowed for a reason. For most of the history of the language, if you died, hunger is what killed you. And winter is when it happened. 200 years ago, there was no central heating. 100 years ago, no home freezer. 70 years ago, no supermarket that ignored the season. 30 years ago, your grandmother still knew what things cost in February. Drop yourself into that Spanish winter and you would not last the season. You couldn't build the fire. You wouldn't know which animals still had fat on them. You'd eat the lean meat because it looked like food, and it would kill you slowly while you were still full. Now go the other way. Put one of them in your January, a room that's the same temperature in winter as in summer. Light that arrives when you touch a wall. Fruit in the middle of the dark months, in a bowl being ignored. And a person lying awake in that room at 7 in the morning, warm, fed, safe, apologizing to themselves for being tired. So did they hibernate? Probably not. Most of the field thinks those bones tell a simpler and sadder story. But if they did, then we lost something. A way of meeting the dark that we've replaced with an alarm clock and a feeling of guilt. And if they didn't, if they just sat in that cave for months in the black and endured it, then what you feel every January isn't a memory of sleeping. It's a memory of waiting. Either way, your body still knows what month it is. Every winter, it tries to tell you. And every winter, you set an alarm.